That cup of tea you're drinking right now might contain pesticide residues, heavy metals, and tiny plastic particles that can build up in your body over time. And the tea companies selling these products know exactly what they're putting in those bags. But they're betting you'll never read the fine print or ask the hard questions. Your daily tea can come with hidden contaminants. Tonight, we're exposing 8 major tea brands sold in grocery stores across America. Brands you've trusted for years. Brands that market themselves as healthy, natural, and pure. And I'm warning you right now, what independent testing and contamination screenings have reported about some popular teas is enough to make you want to dump every box in your pantry tonight. We're talking about pesticide residues that would raise red flags under stricter international standards, heavy metal contamination tied to soil and processing, plastic particles that can shed from certain tea bag materials into hot water, and natural flavor chemicals that have no business in a product marketed as simple tea. Pesticide concerns that exceed stricter international limits. Stick around until the end, because I'm going to tell you which tea brands are actually worth drinking. The ones that prioritize cleaner sourcing, responsible packaging, and real ingredients instead of mystery flavor blends. But first, you need to know which brands to avoid immediately. And before we dive into these disturbing details, if you care about what you're putting in your body every morning, and you want to stay informed about what's really in your pantry, hit that subscribe button and join Frugal Finds for you. Because tea companies are counting on you trusting their marketing instead of demanding proof. Let's prove them wrong. Brand 1, Lipton. Let me start with the biggest name in American tea. Lipton dominates grocery store shelves with that yellow label and the promise of quality tea at a low price. It feels familiar, it feels safe, and that's exactly why so many people never question it. But independent testing has repeatedly raised concerns about pesticide residue levels in conventional mass-market tea, and Lipton is often mentioned in discussions because of how massive their supply chain is. Testing shared by multiple third-party sources has reported residues from a wide range of agricultural chemicals in some mainstream tea products. The issue isn't just one compound, it's the pattern. Conventional tea farming in certain regions relies heavily on pesticides to protect yield, and tea leaves can hold on to residues. Reports of dozens of pesticide traces across conventional teas. But here's what makes this particularly disturbing. Some reported residue levels in certain products are higher than what stricter regulators would consider acceptable. In plain English, tea that can be legally sold in the United States may not pass the same screening standards elsewhere. Tea that can pass here might fail tougher standards abroad. Lipton sources tea from enormous industrial plantations in countries where farming oversight and enforcement can vary. Those plantations often spray aggressively to maximize harvest volume and reduce crop loss. The result is tea leaves that can carry chemical traces right into your cup. And it's not just the leaves, the tea bag itself can be part of the problem. Lipton uses paper tea bags, and many mass-market bags are processed and treated in ways most shoppers never think about. Bleaching and chemical processing can introduce additional concerns, especially when you're pouring near-boiling water over the material and steeping it for minutes at a time. And then there's the plastic issue. Many tea bags across the industry use sealing materials or reinforcing fibers that include plastic, often polypropylene. When hot water hits plastic-containing bag materials, tiny particles can be shed. Several independent experiments and lab-style tests have raised alarms about microplastic release in brewed tea. So, if the bag contains plastic, you may be drinking plastic with every cup. Drinking microscopic plastic particles is not wellness. Former industry workers and tea insiders have long said that mass-market tea brands often use lower-grade tea material, including dust and fannings, instead of larger intact leaves. Dust and fannings aren't automatically poison, but they're cheaper, they can brew harsher, and they can concentrate issues like bitterness and inconsistency. That's why so many mass-market teas taste flat, harsh, or overly astringent. Then the brand covers it with flavoring. and the flavored Lipton teas can be even more misleading. Those natural flavors on the label often don't come from the fruit pictured on the box. They can be lab-created flavor compounds designed to mimic lemon, peach, or berry. That lemon flavor isn't necessarily from lemons. It can be a manufactured blend. So what are you really drinking? For a lot of people, it's tea dust, flavor chemicals, and a supply chain that doesn't prioritize cleaner farming the way certified organic producers do. And if you're already side-eyeing your tea shelf right now, do me a favor and subscribe to Frugal Finds for You, because the next brand is one a lot of healthy living shoppers trust without question. Brand 2, Celestial Seasonings. Celestial Seasonings markets itself as a natural herbal tea company with wholesome ingredients and earthy values. The colorful boxes, the calming artwork, the inspirational quotes. It's basically designed to feel like a warm hug. But reported testing and screenings have raised serious questions about contamination rates in conventional herbal teas across the industry. And Celestial Seasonings gets brought up often in these discussions because so many of their products are not certified organic. Some third-party tests have reported that a high percentage of conventional herbal teas can show pesticide residue traces. Herbal ingredients come from farms, and farms use chemicals unless they're held to strict standards. High contamination rates have been reported in some herbal tea screenings. The reports often point out that certain pesticides flagged in tea supply chains are classified as possible carcinogens or endocrine disruptors, depending on the compound and exposure levels. The scary part isn't just the label, it's the repeated exposure. People drink these teas daily, sometimes multiple cups a day, for years. You're not having a one-time sip, you're building a habit. But here's where the deception gets worse. Celestial Seasonings uses words like natural and imagery that screams pure. But natural is not the same as organic. Natural is marketing language. It is not a guarantee of pesticide-free sourcing. Natural on the box is not the same thing as clean in the cup. The company sources herbs and botanicals from a wide range of suppliers. And quality standards can vary depending on ingredient origin, crop conditions, and supply chain pressure. In large-scale production, cost and availability tend to win. Testing has also raised concerns about tea bag materials across the market, including bags that use plastic fibers or sealing materials. If a bag contains plastic, heat can cause shedding. That means even if the herbs were perfect, the packaging could still contaminate the brew. Every cup shouldn't come with plastic particles. And then there's flavoring. Celestial Seasonings is famous for blends with comforting, familiar tastes. But some of those blends rely on added flavor compounds. When you see natural flavors or vague flavor listings, you're not always getting just herbs. You can be getting chemically produced flavor additives designed to make the blend taste stronger, sweeter, or more consistent. That cozy flavor profile may not be coming from the herbs alone. At $4 to $7 a box, Celestial Seasonings often charges a premium compared to basic black tea. But if you're paying premium prices, you should be getting premium standards, not vague sourcing, vague flavoring, and avoidable packaging issues. You're paying for packaging and branding, not purity. Brand 3, Bigelow. Bigelow is a household name. It's in office break rooms, kitchen cabinets, and grocery carts everywhere. And because it's been around forever, a lot of people assume it's automatically trustworthy. But with mass market tea, the biggest concern is the same across the board: conventional farming, global sourcing, and inconsistent oversight. When brands prioritize scale, the supply chain gets complicated fast. Some independent testing discussions have flagged pesticide residues and heavy metal concerns across widely sold black and green teas, especially those sourced from large plantations. Again, the key point is not that every box is toxic, but that the system can allow contaminant exposure without clear warning labels. The supply chain is the vulnerability. Bigelow also runs into the tea bag problem. Many bagged teas in this category use sealing materials that can include plastic. If the bag material contains plastic fibers, hot steeping can shed microplastics into the water. And here's another issue: tea dust versus whole leaf. A lot of mainstream brands use smaller leaf particles for consistency and cost control. Smaller particles mean faster brewing, stronger color, and stronger astringency. But it also means more surface area interacting with the water, which can matter when you're talking about residues. More surface area, more extraction, more concern. Flavored varieties can add another layer. Natural flavors may be present to push a signature taste profile. That's not automatically evil, but it isn't what most people picture when they think they're drinking simple tea. If you're buying tea for health, you should know what's actually in it. Brand 4, Twinings. Twinings is one of the oldest tea companies in the world, with over 300 years of history. The British heritage, the royal warrant vibes, the premium reputation. It all feels like tradition and quality. But modern Twinings tea sold in America doesn't always match the image. Testing discussions have raised concerns about pesticide traces in conventional teas, including some compounds restricted under stricter international frameworks. And here's the part that frustrates people. Brands can sell different versions of products depending on where they're sold, based on supply chain and regulation. Cleaner under stricter rules, weaker under looser ones. Tea bags are another issue. Tests and experiments looking at microplastic shedding have found that some bag materials can release particles into hot water. If a bag uses plastic fibers or plastic sealing material that becomes part of what you steep, you're not just steeping tea, you may be steeping the bag. Twinings sources tea from large-scale plantations using conventional growing practices. That premium image doesn't always match industrial agriculture and global supply chain cost pressure. You can end up paying for heritage while getting mass production. And let's talk flavored blends. Some blends are enhanced for consistency. Citrus notes, bergamot-style flavors, signature tastes. Those can come from added flavoring compounds, not just tea leaves and natural botanicals. That's how brands keep the same taste year after year. Another concern that gets mentioned in tea safety conversations is fluoride. Tea plants naturally accumulate fluoride from the soil. That doesn't mean tea is poison, but excessive fluoride exposure over time can be an issue for certain people, especially heavy tea drinkers. If you drink multiple cups daily, it's something to be aware of. At $6 to $9 a box, Twinings charges premium pricing based on legacy branding. But when you combine conventional sourcing concerns, bag material concerns, and flavoring additives, it doesn't always feel like premium value. Premium price, not always premium transparency. Brand 5, Tazo. Tazo markets itself as exotic, adventurous tea. Bold flavors, premium ingredients, worldly sourcing. It started as a specialty tea brand, then corporate ownership shifted it into a mass market machine. And that's where the trust breaks. Testing discussions have raised concerns about pesticide residues in conventional teas and herbs, especially when brands source from large ingredient networks where cost is prioritized. The exotic branding can distract you from the reality. It's still mass production. Exotic branding can cover up conventional sourcing. Then you've got the tea bag issue again. Many modern tea bags use plastic sealing materials or fibers. If the bag contains plastic, hot water can cause shedding. That means you could be sipping microplastic particles without realizing it. You're paying for premium and steeping plastic. Tazo also relies heavily on flavors. Those passion fruit, citrus, and spice-forward blends often get their punch from flavor compounds. Natural flavors can be chemically produced and engineered to hit a specific taste profile, even if the actual amount of the pictured ingredient is tiny. That fruit flavor can be a formula, not a fruit. Former insiders and supply chain watchers often say the same thing about corporate tea. Sourcing decisions prioritize cost stability. That can mean herbs and botanicals from large farms using conventional chemical-intensive practices. Sourcing prioritizes margins, not purity, and some blends can be more filler than tea. You get a lot of flavor experience, but less real tea leaf content than you'd expect based on the branding. At $6 to $10 a box, Tazo charges specialty pricing, but you're often getting mass market sourcing, aggressive flavoring, and tea bag materials that may not match the clean image. Brand 6. Tetley. Tetley is another heritage tea brand sold in America for decades. The marketing leans heavily on tradition and quality. But reported testing concerns around conventional tea apply here too. Independent testing conversations have raised concerns about pesticide traces in conventional tea supply chains. Some compounds flagged in global tea farming are restricted under stricter standards elsewhere. And if you're buying in the US, you may not be getting the same product standard consumers get in markets with tighter limits. American versions can be different from overseas versions. The tea bags can also be a problem. If the bag contains plastic fibers or sealing material, hot water can trigger microplastic shedding. Lab-style experiments and contamination screenings have repeatedly raised awareness around this. You shouldn't have to worry about the bag contaminating the brew. Tetley is also known for smaller leaf particles in many bagged products, broken leaves, fannings, dust. That makes a strong cup fast, but it's a lower-grade material than whole leaf tea. Uses smaller particles, not premium whole leaf. Flavored varieties can include natural and artificial flavors. Earl Grey-style blends can use added bergamot-type flavoring compounds rather than relying purely on natural oil extraction. And then there's heavy metal concern. Tea plants can absorb heavy metals like lead, cadmium, and aluminum from soil. The risk depends on soil conditions and farm practices. Without rigorous, transparent testing, consumers have no easy way to know what they're getting. Heavy metal testing isn't something most brands advertise. At $4 to $7 a box, Tetley positions itself as affordable quality. But if you're getting conventional sourcing concerns, possible bag material issues, flavor additives, and unclear heavy metal screening, that's not quality. That's just familiar branding. Brand 7, Red Rose. Red Rose has been an American staple for over 100 years. A lot of people remember it for affordability, nostalgia, and those collectible figurines that made the brand feel friendly. But behind the nostalgia is the same mass-market reality. Testing discussions have raised concerns about high pesticide residue presence in some conventional tea supply chains, especially among brands focused on low-cost sourcing. When price is the priority, the tea often comes from the cheapest available suppliers, and that can mean heavier chemical farming practices. Multiple pesticide traces are a common concern in conventional tea reports. The tea itself is usually lower-grade material, often dust and fannings. That waste-style tea material is cheaper, and it's often paired with bleached paper bags. Bleaching and chemical processing can raise concerns about trace contaminants, and again, the tea bag materials can contribute. If the bag contains synthetic fibers or plastic sealing materials, hot water can release particles. That means even if you don't taste anything wrong, you could still be drinking residue you never asked for. Drinking plastic residue with every serving is not normal. Red Rose is built around low-cost production. Minimal quality control, minimal transparency, maximum shelf presence. At $3 to $5 a box, it seems like value. Until you realize value isn't just price. Value is what you're putting in your body. Some discussions also raise fluoride concerns for heavy tea drinkers, especially with cheaper, highly extracted bagged teas. Tea naturally contains fluoride, but frequent consumption can add up. And most brands provide no guidance or warnings. At bargain prices, Red Rose feels like a win. But if the tea is low-grade, the supply chain is low-cost, and the bag materials are questionable, that's not a win. That's cheap tea with expensive consequences. Brand 8, Salada. Let me end with a brand that represents everything wrong with mass-market tea. Salada has been selling budget tea in America for over 120 years. But heritage means nothing if the product is built on low standards. Testing discussions have raised concerns about pesticide residues approaching legal thresholds in conventional tea supply chains. Not because the companies are required to be transparent, but because independent screens and consumer investigations keep finding the same pattern. Cheap sourcing equals higher risk. Pesticide levels pushing close to legal maximums is not comforting. And Salada runs straight into the tea bag issue. If the bag contains plastic fibers or plastic sealing materials, heat can shed particles. Some experiments and test reports suggest that certain budget tea bags may release a higher count of microplastic particles than people expect. Every cup shouldn't include plastic contamination. Salada also leans heavily on the lowest cost tea materials, mainly dust and fannings. The bags are often filled with tea waste that higher-end whole leaf producers would never package as a premium product. You're drinking what premium manufacturers discard. The bleached paper bag concern comes back again. And then the heavy metal question. Tea can absorb metals from soil, especially if farms are in areas with contamination issues or poor oversight. Without transparent testing, consumers have to guess, and that's the real problem. Guessing. Former industry voices describe some legacy budget tea brands as companies that haven't meaningfully upgraded standards in generations. The business model is simple: sell cheap, sell familiar, and count on customers not asking questions. At $2 to $4 a box, Salada is one of the cheapest teas available. And you get exactly what you pay for: low-grade tea, questionable packaging, and a supply chain that doesn't inspire confidence. This isn't a bargain. It's risk marketed as comfort. And if this is hitting a little too close to home because you have some of these brands in your cabinet right now, pause for 2 seconds and subscribe to Frugal Finds for You. We break down what the labels don't say, so you don't keep paying for products that don't deserve your trust. The tea brands you can trust. After exposing all those problems, you need to know which tea brands actually aim higher. Look for brands that use certified organic ingredients, publish or share testing practices, and use plastic-free, compostable, unbleached tea bags. Numi Organic Tea Sources, certified organic tea and herbs. Focuses on cleaner sourcing and uses compostable bags designed to avoid plastic contamination. Their brand identity is built around transparency and ingredient quality. Traditional Medicinals uses organic herbs, emphasizes testing for pesticides and heavy metals, and packages in unbleached bags without plastic sealing. Many people like them because the blends rely on real botanicals, not heavy, artificial flavoring. Rishi Tea offers organic certified teas with direct sourcing relationships, broad contaminant screening practices, and compostable packaging options. It's more expensive, but you're paying for standards. Yogi Tea uses many organic ingredients and generally avoids the heavy chemical flavor experience that a lot of mass-market brands rely on. Their blends are formulated to taste like real herbs, not artificial fruit candy. Organic India sources certified organic tea from its own farms and maintains tighter control over production from farm to package. When brands control more of the pipeline, there's less mystery. Complete control from farm to package matters. The common thread here is organic certification, rigorous testing, and packaging that doesn't contaminate the tea. These brands cost more because they invest in quality, not just marketing. You're paying for purity, not a pretty box. And if you want more breakdowns like this, where we separate what's real from what's hype, make sure you're subscribed to Frugal Finds for You right now, because the pantry traps don't stop at tea. Conclusion: your daily cup matters. The 8 tea brands we exposed tonight all raise serious concerns around conventional pesticide exposure, plastic particles from certain bag materials, artificial flavor additives, and potential heavy metals, depending on sourcing and soil conditions. And when you drink tea daily, these exposures can add up over time. Contaminants accumulate with repeated daily consumption. When you drink Lipton, you're trusting a massive conventional supply chain where pesticide residue concerns have been widely discussed. When you drink Celestial seasonings, you're often drinking natural branding without organic standards. When you drink Bigelow or Twinings, you may be paying for familiarity and heritage while still dealing with conventional sourcing and packaging concerns. When you drink Tazo and Tetley, you're often getting heavy flavor engineering and mass market production. When you drink Red Rose or Salada, you're drinking the cheapest tea material available, wrapped in a system that rarely prioritizes transparency. And here's why this keeps happening. Because tea companies prioritize profit over purity. They buy the cheapest supply, rely on conventional chemical farming, use bag materials that consumers don't understand, and spend millions on packaging that makes you feel safe. But independent screens and lab-style testing conversations keep revealing the truth. The difference between marketed as clean and actually clean can be huge. Laboratory-style screening reveals what marketing hides. Every dollar you spend is a vote. When you buy contaminated, low-standard products, you reward the system. When you choose organic, tested, transparent brands, you support companies doing it right. If this video opened your eyes to what might be in your tea, hit subscribe and stick, with Frugal finds for you. Because these companies are betting you'll never question your cup, and we're here to make sure you do. Check your pantry tonight. If you've been drinking any of these 8 brands, it might be time to switch. Your health is worth more than saving a couple of dollars on tea that doesn't meet the standard you thought you were buying. What tea brand have you been drinking? Drop it in the comments below. Because when we share our experiences, we realize how many people are unknowingly sipping contaminated tea while trusting brands that haven't earned that trust.